Today we're talking about gender justice. Gender justice is a really important concept with many different ways of defining it. But Wren defines gender justice by saying that gender justice goes beyond the concept of women's rights. It centers those most impacted by gender-based discrimination to create a world that affirms the lives of all people.
Wren has made a commitment to being an organization focused on achieving gender justice. And in doing so, we've been asked a number of times, what about women's rights? What about feminism? Does gender justice erase those movements? Our response to that is not at all. The gender justice movement doesn't erase the women's rights and feminist movements. Instead, it recognizes that gender-based discrimination impacts everyone in different ways. A movement that focuses only on women's rights can erase the experiences of trans people and ignore the impacts of things like race, socioeconomic status, sexuality, and more. Gender justice recognizes that all of these things interact. No two people experience the world in the same way. The gender justice movement includes things like women's rights and feminism alongside things like racial justice to create a good world for all people.
Now that we've cleared that up, here are just a few of the things that Wren does to incorporate gender justice in our everyday work. We gather diverse testifiers on a variety of legislative issues. We work to engage youth as much as possible. We try to center accessibility in everything that we do. We try to be inclusive of the LGBTQ+ community. We work to remove structural barriers to advocacy. We work in partnership with grassroots organizers and organizations all across the state. And we're actively growing our capacity for language justice. And while we actively try and do all of this all the time, we're not perfect. We'll continue to learn and grow in all of these areas, and we hope you'll do so with us.
Let's look even deeper at Wren's commitment to gender justice. Wren developed a gender justice policy agenda that shapes which policies we work on. It's because of this agenda that we sometimes work on policies that aren't necessarily seen as women's policies. We often get questions like, why does Wren work on things like melting plastic waste, ending the sub-minimum wage for people with disabilities, voting rights? And the answer to that is because all of these policies impact gender justice in South Carolina.
We hope that through this video, you were able to learn a little bit more about gender justice. This video is part of a larger educational series about gender justice and how it impacts Wren's work. In the coming weeks, we'll explore in more detail the policies we just mentioned, as well as some additional topics. Next week, we'll be exploring the concept of intersectionality, a term that was first coined in 1989 by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. Please stay tuned to this series to learn more and share this video with a friend so that they too can learn about gender justice.